Bible because of the text in it. All is related to Christ. It's very small. It's only about the size of bigger than a credit card, about this big, about the size of a Gideon Bible. When you say those little hand Bibles, it's only got a few heavy pages in it, and some has pictures in it, and it's written in Greek and depictions of the resurrection of Christ. So it's going to be very interesting. This is one of those types of things that scholars don't like to find, because especially the atheist scholars don't like to come across. They don't like to find these things because
this. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, well, this is where we are right now. The atheist scholars don't like to find these things because you're constantly trying to disprove any type of real connections inside of Christianity. But I think it's exciting, and I hope some true scholars can look at it and give us some more information about it.
You know, Steve, I was just thinking in church this morning, what a blessing it is to have atheists study the Bible so much, because as hard as they try, they can't disprove it.
No.
And nobody else could be as authentic as somebody that's really trying to tear you down. Yeah, and they come at it from every angle, and they come at one of the sad things is that they use a lot of the strategies that have been disproven years and years ago. You know, some of their arguments, some of their apologetics have been dismissed, and they bring the same stuff back. And this time, though, a lot of these guys, when they bring it back with such anger, and you know, they're just seething with it. It's just like if you were arguing with Satan, how he would just spit this stuff out at you.
Ironically, they're the devil's advocate.
Yeah. That's right.
So, you know, having to study that stuff is very difficult. That's one of the hardest things that I have to do. And so often I try to do it I won't read their books directly. It's just, it makes me too angry. It's like, he's standing there going, you're wrong. You know, what am I doing? I'm beating up the book. So I usually end up reading someone else's arguments against them, you know, so it kind of makes me a little bit separated from it, yeah, so I can kind of watch it go back and forth that way. There's plenty of people who will write rebuttals to it, so that's good. But there's plenty of that stuff out there now, and the sad thing is in so many of the institutions, so many of the universities, where kids are going there they're supposed to get a regular, straight education. And I have been in these situations. In fact, I remember a sociology class that I took up at, when I was an undergrad, I was at Cuesta College. I was, when I was at Cal Poly. Went over to the JC there, Cuesta, and took a sociology class there. And this woman, she was not only an atheist, she was a Marxist. And she knew she had an audience there of people that she was going to drill them with her doctrine, and she let everybody come into that class that wanted to come into that class. And that was, I mean, the room can hold maybe 35 people, you know, an average classroom. They were packed. It was like 60 people in there. I mean, the fire marshal would have went crazy. But she said, only a fraction of you are going to survive this class. And she went on to just rail on people about religion and government and her views. Well, the key to beating her class was having the study guide. The study guide was not in the school bookstore, but I was going to Cal Poly. So I went to a different bookstore and picked up a study guide. Well, then I had the notes that she was lecturing from, and I was one of the 10 people that survived the class. Now, at the very end, when she went after Christianity, she said, no real relevant leader in the world was ever a Christian.
Mm.
Well, during that time, Ronald Reagan was president.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we can start with our president, and I can go backwards to King David if you want. You know, I mean, and everybody else in between. There's just tons of people that will prove you wrong with that. Well, she didn't like that at all, of course, and my grade went from an A to a B. But it was worth it. Anyways, today we have one of our dishes that is a very mixed culture. This one is going to include, when you find it on the internet, if you ever look it up, you will find that it really fits into the category of Egyptian, but the components of it, the components of it are a whole mixture of different cultures. I mean, we just start with the phyllo. Phyllo. What's the word phyllo? The word phyllo itself is a Greek word. It means leaf.
What kind of leaf?
Well, just like if we were to use the word leaf in English, you know, the tree had leaves, or there was a leaf on the ground. It doesn't really designate exactly what type of leaf it is, but that it has that general light structure and texture to it. We have, we're going to be using eggs, butter, we're going to be using tomatoes, we've got some garlic, onion, parsley, ground beef, and some green chilies in there. Green chilies. Green chilies. Kind of makes you think, oh, kind of the completely different culture. But I found that the Jewish people used, in a number of their dishes, they use chilies and chili pepper in it. But they use so little of it. Very little of it. It's just right in the background in there. And to me, that's exactly how it should be, because if you use a whole lot of it, it just becomes an overwhelming flavor, a overwhelming hot flavor, and you can't taste anything else in there. Kosher Tums, there you go. And we're using cumin as a spice, and it's really quite easy to make. Now you're going to chop up your onions and your garlic, and that goes into a pan with about a tablespoon of olive oil, but you can use any oil that you want. If you want to stay traditional, you can use olive oil.
Can I ask you a question about olive oil? I saw Trader Joe's had an ad in about the different kinds of olive oil.
Uh-huh.
I just thought olive oil was olive oil, but apparently there's a great difference.
He must not have been here when I went to the Ojai olive oil vineyard. Well, it's on the website. You can watch all the pictures and everything.
So there really is.
There is a lot of different types of olive oil.
We went to an olive factory, olive oil factory in Phoenix, Arizona,
Uh-huh.
and learned a lot.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Did you take the tour?
We took the tour and got samples.
Yeah. To watch the different machines and how they're picked. Of course, in Ojai, a lot of them are hand-picked because of how they're stacked. The trees are stacked. But the machines nowadays just pluck them right off, and then they're go through a variety of stages to have them de-seeded and crushed, and then spun with a centrifugal device that forces the oil out of. But
And there's a virgin olive oil, and there's one that has preservatives in it or something. But the best ones get the virgin.
the virgin ones are the best ones, the best and the first ones. But there's also olive oil that can come out of what's the remains of it too, and then the remains actually end up becoming different types of feed and mulch. So none of it's wasted.
I like the grapeseed olive oil.
Yeah.
It's good on fish and it's good in salads.
Mm-hmm. And once you have your onions and your garlic in here, and you let it cook for a little while, you start getting those hallelujah smells start coming up. Everybody starts popping their head in. Cooking today, Steve? All right. You know, there's only a couple of things. You know, if you have the garlic and the onion cooking, or if I'm baking something with cinnamon and brown sugar, same thing happens. Smells good, Steve? So anyways, you're going to cook these for just a few minutes, just till they start to turn a little bit translucent, and then you're going to put in the hamburger. And you keep mixing the hamburger in there till it cooks, and that's just till the red starts to disappear. And then you can add your cumin in there, which was about a teaspoon of cumin, and a salt and pepper. And the recipe actually called for a tablespoon of salt. I did not put that much in there, because I know a lot of you are on low salt diets. So I'm going to put a teaspoon in. So if you want to add more salt, just holler. And then you're going to add the parsley, and you're going to let it cook. Now you're going to let it cook long enough. You've got to put it on very low, especially on the burners we have here, because those things are really hot. Cook it low until the moisture starts to disappear. You don't want a lot of moisture in there. You're going to get moisture from especially the meat. Now this is a 93:7 ratio. So this is low-fat meat, so you're not going to get a whole lot off this. If you were to use the higher ratios, of course the liquid would come out of the fats, and you would start having more. This is a low-fat meat. And then once that is finished, you're going to start to take your phyllo. Now the recipe only called for 3 tablespoons of butter. That's a very little butter. Now I don't like to put a whole lot of butter in there. I don't like to go Paula Deen on you. But what I did is start lining this with the phyllo, and then I just took my brush and just lightly went through it with a little bit of butter, and that'll make it settle and cling inside there. And you're going to do that with half the box of phyllo, which is most boxes have 18 to 20 slices, so you're going to put 9 to 10 slices in here. So once you got half of that in there, then you're going to take your mixture and you're going to pour that in, and then you're going to take the rest of the phyllo, and 1 sheet at a time you're going to put that in there and then continue to butter that. Now I used about 1.5 sticks of butter going through instead of 3 tablespoons of butter. So there's a lot more butter in this one than there is in the recipe. But that happens with just about every one of those that I have done. I end up using at least twice as much butter. Now you're going to let this bake for about 45 minutes in an oven at about 375. And then when you take it out just before it's ready, and you're going to take some egg whites and some milk and whip that together and brush it across the top here and then bake it again. And why would you do that?
Round it up.
Makes it nice and brown, isn't it? Just like this.
Only the cook would know that.
And so... will be on the website.
What would you call it?
You know what they called it? They just called it an Egyptian, savory Egyptian beef entree. But it's kind of like a beef pie, you know? Beef casserole, yeah. But since it's got the layer over the top of it like that, it's totally enclosed. So it's kind of a beef pie. Yeah, it's closer to a chicken or a beef pot pie than anything. I wouldn't go as far as saying it a shepherd pie, because you kind of move into a different category of food in a way. But it's very it fits in that same kind of category.
Just had a question.
Sure.
Does the phyllo dough have less carbs than, say, a slab of lasagna pasta?
I've never compared them side by side.
How you were preparing that is similar to the way you do lasagna.
Yeah. I've never compared them side by side.